Hi, listener, and welcome to another edition of the Coco and Adults podcast. We're real people, and we do real reviews. And let me just say off the top, listener, that Coco barred me from doing rootin' tootin', rootin' tootin'.
But did I, though? Because you basically just did it.
Yes, I just did it straight up. I'm not Coco.
And I'm not Daltz.
And not Daltz. What are we talking about in this fine, fine episode of the Coco and Daltz podcast?
This fine 149th episode of the Coco and Daltz podcast.
Wow.
So if you go back in our feed a few episodes, you'll see that we reviewed the first episode of the second season of Ted Lasso, the soccer comedy series on Apple TV+. Today we're looking back at the entire second season. Mm-hmm. It just concluded this past Friday, if you're listening to this in real time, because why wouldn't you? Mm-hmm. So season 2, as I mentioned, it's on Apple TV+. It was 12 episodes. Apparently they had plotted out story arcs for 10 episodes when Apple came back and said, we want 2 more. So there were a couple standalone episodes. One was a Christmas episode. The other was A Night in the Life of Coach Beard. But everything else was pretty in service of various storylines. During the season, Rebecca and team owner Rebecca and young player Sam had an illicit romance after meeting on a dating app, which is now the sponsor of AFC Richmond, after Sam led a protest against Dubai Air or something like that, which causes environmental chaos in his native Nigeria. The team hired a new shrink, Dr. Sharon Fieldstone, who talked to various players and staff members. Coach Ted, we found out that he had some trauma related to his father from his youth. He started having panic attacks. Coach Beard had that one standalone episode that I won't go into, although I'm sure we will later.
Yes, we will.
Most of the players were pretty sidelined. Jamie Tart had a couple episodes.
Jamie Tart, rootin' tootin' tootin'.
No. Oh. Roy and Keeley, they're still together. Their relationship was a bit shaky at the end of the season. Higgins is Higgins, and did I miss anything?
I'm glad to see Higgins moved on from his life with Magnum, because I was looking for him to get another job.
And he shaved the Hitler stash.
Yeah, and he shaved the stash and is not as portly, but he's friendlier. So I like Higgins's character arc from 1982.
Oh, and I should also mention Trent Krim is now independent, not with The Independent.
You realize you're spoiling a lot of this stuff for people.
Well, this is already 5 days old.
Yeah, but not everybody has binged it like we have.
Okay, well, I didn't say why he is independent now.
Oh, okay.
So, and
because it was the drug use. Oh, I shouldn't have said that.
No, I mean, he's a journalist, so.
Right, that just comes with the territory.
And then they may or may not, AFC Richmond, have gone up to the Premier League after being relegated last season. And there may be some season-long drama with Nate. So
let's examine themes to this series.
Let's.
Coco, what do you think was the overarching theme for this? So the first season was just like, hey, it's a guy out of water, like a fish out of water. Feel good comedy. He's a nice guy. We like him. We need some nice people these days because everybody's grouchy and mean and customer service sucks. So we need somebody who's happy and joyful and looks at the positive side of things. And I love that. It was something exactly what we needed, especially with the pandemic and everything like that going on, world hunger, etc., job strife. It was really nice to have that uplifting Ted Lasso character. Second season to me was like Ted Lasso, the dark years. And it ended up going a little bit twisty. And we should say for listeners' edification that we expect there to be only 3 seasons of Ted Lasso. And so there's a traditional introduction, conflict resolution kind of arc going on here with each season. So we expect the third season to tie a lot of bows on a lot of these storylines. But the second season was really kind of testing the boundaries of whether it was funny or not. And it succeeded as far as I was concerned. I mean, they went in a lot of different places. They went dark a little bit with Ted, with his childhood trauma that was actually pretty horrific. And it felt a lot more like a traditional sitcom in the second season, whereas the first season to me was just like, these guys are funny and I'm not expecting them to say the things that they say and all that sort of stuff. However, having said that, I think the second season was still really good overall.
Wow.
What were your overarching themes, Coco, throughout the second season?
Well, yeah, the first season was just very feel good. There were some external villains. Rebecca was one that got resolved at the end of season 1. Season 2, I mean, if you've read any review of season 2 online, you already know this, but season 2 was all about overcoming internal struggles as opposed to external challenges. So everybody had internal things they were going through. Nate, Ted, Rebecca, Coach Beard, Roy, Jamie, even Danny Rojas, even though he was marginalized for most of the season. He kind of, which, please, for the love of dog, writers for season 3, please bring the players back in. Like, yes. I want to see more Danny Rojas.
Danny Rojas was awesome. That scene where he's at the funeral with the shoes and he's walking in it's the first time he's ever worn dress shoes, and he's walking in there and he's like,
and they're creaking.
Yeah, I will take them home and I will burn them. It's like any guy who's ever worn dress shoes knows exactly that pain.
Yeah, so please bring, more focus onto the players for season 3.
Yes.
That might be really my only complaint about season 2. I didn't mind season 2 going internal as much as a lot of people did. I know season 2 was pretty polarizing. You can't really, I think, maintain aw shucks feel good status for 3 straight seasons. I feel like you kind of have to go through the turmoil to get back to that at the end. So
you have to have some depth.
Yeah, there can be character growth.
Right.
But I really wanted to see more of Danny Rojas and Colin and Will, who's the new Kit Kid, and Isaac. I think that's the name of the captain. A lot of and the Dutch guy. There were a lot of players, like everybody on that cast is so good. And there were a lot of players I wish we could have seen more of in season 2.
Yeah. And I think that's part of the reason that season 1 was so successful and so good and so funny and so different, is that we saw Roy. We saw Roy Kent as a player and him struggling with the fact that his skills are fading. And then you saw young Jamie Tart coming in there and making fun of him. There was conflict there. You saw a lot of the other characters had a lot of, like you said, Coco, had a bigger presence and had a more substantial role in driving the story along. So, Ted Lasso was challenged by these kinds of things. And how do you make a young guy get along with an old guy who's on the way out? And that kind of stuff was not really all that present in the second season. It was, as you mentioned, it was a lot internal. I think that one of the things that we've talked about previously and while watching it is that the villain last year was very much, like you said, was the former club owner, Rebecca's husband. There was Rebecca at one time was a bit of a villain. In this season, it seems like a lot of the villains were internal. It was everybody was struggling with something that they had inside them, and so the villains were in themselves in some ways. However, Nate the Great is setting up to be the villain for the third season.
And Rupert, Rebecca's ex-husband, is coming back as well, which I am excited about because Anthony Head is fantastic, and why do you cast Anthony Head in that role if you're just going to have him quietly bow out?
Right.
After using him for 4 episodes, I think he made an appearance in over the first 2 seasons. So I really hope we see a lot of Rupert and Nate in their new roles as villains in season 3. And I will also say, I hope that we finally get season 3 Ted learning about soccer, because one of the things I said when we talked about episode 1 of the second season was that Ted doesn't know anything really about soccer, and he also doesn't appear to try to be learning about it. So we've never gotten, I thought we might get that after the season 1 episode where Coach Beard tells Ted, Ted has his line about, I don't care about wins and losses. I just want to make these guys, be the best versions of themselves. And Coach Beard finally loses it on him a little bit and says, but these aren't 19-year-old kids in your American college football program. These are professionals. If they lose a lot, that's going to impact the rest of their lives. It's going to impact their professional careers. It doesn't matter how good they are if they're on a crappy team. This is going to destroy their earning potential for the rest of their lives. So you need to care about this. And I thought at that point, the light might go off for Ted, and we might see a montage of him reading Soccer for Dummies and watching YouTube videos of the Hand of God goal. And we've never seen that. And even in season 2, he still kind of seems to be floating along and letting Nate design like all the plays and stuff for him. So hopefully now that Rupert and Nate are on a team that is a rival for AFC Richmond, now that they are back up, with the big boys, hopefully Ted now finally gets his head out of his ass and says, maybe I need to actually learn about this sport that I'm probably being paid a whole lot of money to coach, and that also caused me to leave my child the same way my father left me when I was a young man. And I'm just repeating that cycle with another generation.
I don't have anything to offer there. That was just really deep and thoughtful. I don't know what to say.
Have you been drinking? Like
maybe. No, I agree with what you said there, Coco, all that stuff, because why wouldn't I? And if I was to disagree, I would be on the couch. So theoretically, though, I think the third season is going to be really a test of our goodwill for Ted Lasso, like you said. Not a guy who really has done a lot of tactical stuff. And I don't see Coach Beard is reading like philosophical books, sitting at his desk, and he's got like little tabs, little sticky notes on them. Like he's not reading a lot of soccer stuff either. Nate's been guiding a lot of the strategy. Roy Kent, who's now on the staff, he's been just kind of yelling at them. He hasn't really been talking a lot of tactics. So this doesn't have to be like the football experts show or anything like that. But at the same time, I think that, he's just standing there yelling encouragement from the sidelines. I think a coach does more than that. So to your point, he's not really trying to be anything more than a fish out of water. So I think that needs to change in this third season.
And I think if he cares about making people better, he should care about making himself better and modeling, okay, I'm completely out of my element, but I'm going to rise to this occasion and I'm going to be the person that my team needs me to be, and not just stand here and blow a whistle and teach them how to do the bye dance when Dr. Sharon leaves the team, which was amazing. And I have watched that on Danny Rojas's Instagram feed about 8 million times, like the footage of them doing the bye dance. That's amazing.
So let's talk about the Coach Beard episode and the Christmas episode. 2 standalone episodes that were ordered, as Coco said, because Apple wanted more when they probably should have just left it at 10.
I liked the Christmas episode.
Well, you're big into Christmas.
I'm big into Die Hard. There we go. I'll use the same line I used yesterday when you also accused me of liking Christmas. I really
accused you.
I really liked the Christmas episode. The Coach Beard episode wasn't my favorite. I didn't dislike it. I think it's good because he's so taciturn, but he's clearly extremely important. I know. Take a shot, listener who takes a shot when we use big words.
Good word.
He's clearly important to Ted, and he's a character that he's so interesting. He seems so interesting that I would like to learn more about him. So having the opportunity to learn more about him is a good thing, to know more about this character. But I didn't super love the episode. It was just kind of weird for me. Like he's at a disco in a church and they're dancing to a song that's 15 years old. And I don't know. It was just strange. What did you think?
Yeah, so those 2 episodes were what I was referring to mainly when I said it felt like a traditional sitcom, because it went into the territories like, oh, we got to come up with an idea for an episode. What are we going to do? And then like the Christmas episode. Okay, sounds good. Let's do a Christmas episode, which was actually pretty good. I mean, Christmas away from your family and all that sort of stuff. There were some chords there that were successfully struck. But the Beard episode, I liked it if it hadn't been in Ted Lasso. Like if it had been another series, I think it would have been really good and really funny. I just don't think it added anything. I feel like it was very much an add-on. You could tell that it was tacked on because the other players weren't involved, and it was the fans and Coach Beard, and there weren't really a lot of the other characters in there in the show. I also think it was kind of like the equivalent to the old-timey, Friends episodes or Brady Bunch episodes where they do the wavy lines and, like, remember when we used to do this? And then it was like a throwaway episode that was actually just clips from other episodes cobbled together. It felt like a kind of cop-out, even though there was not that really in this episode. It felt like that kind of cop-out where, it just didn't add a lot to me. But what you said, I agree as well, is that I liked Coach Beard. I like him as a character. I want to learn more about him, but I just don't think I learned more about him.
Right.
Because he was raging it up overnight after a bad loss. I mean, he just...
And having issues with his girlfriend. Like,
right.
Aren't we all?
Yeah.
It felt...
You have a girlfriend?
It felt to me, and I mentioned this to Daltz when we actually watched that episode, like in the second season of Stranger Things, it was a little bumpy, but finally around episode 6 or 7, like it got some momentum. And at the very end of that episode, you see the Demogorgons coming up out of the pit and they're coming toward the command center. Mm-hmm. And then that's the very end of the episode. And you're like, oh my God, I can't wait to watch the next episode. But then the next episode, it's like the record scratches.
Right.
And you follow Eleven to Chicago, where she reunites with some other people who she was in the research center with, and they track down some people who treated them badly or whatever. And it was just, that episode with Eleven was such a momentum killer for the season. Mm-hmm. And the Beard episode kind of felt like that to me.
Yeah, I agree with that. And that we talked about that when we did the Stranger Things podcast, is it felt like a spin-off episode to me. It's like, okay, Stranger Things is so successful, we want to get more money, so what are we going to do? We create a bunch of separate characters and do a show with them. And that's what it felt like, and that's not what happened. But that's a kind of the same thing with the Beard episode. I think overall it was really well done. The season was engaging. I think that, like you said about Stranger Things, sometimes when you have a out of the blue success in your first season, you're almost like a victim of your own success in that second season, the sophomore slump kind of thing. I think for the most part, Ted Lasso avoided that. Like, I think it was still pretty good. I think there were some struggles there and some issues, and it wasn't quite the same kind of vibe as the first season, but that was okay. It actually worked out fairly well. I'm interested to see how they pull it all together in the season 3. I want, exactly like you said, I want more players, because to me, as a former player myself,
not soccer,
but as a guy who has spent some time in dressing rooms, locker rooms, and the banter back and forth, it felt really authentic to me, really genuine. And I wanted more of that because that's really entertaining me. And we don't have that kind of thing very much. I mean, we're going to talk about, we watched the Leafs documentary on Amazon. We're going to talk about that at some point too. But it has the same kind of vibe where you see athletes just giving each other crap all the time and making fun of each other, but they love each other. And that's that's the kind of thing that I really liked about the first season. And we didn't really see that as much in the second season. So I'm hoping a little bit of, they advanced the ball, to use a sports term, a little bit in the third season, but also bring it back a little bit to the first season. So overall, Coco, out of 26 letters, and you can't use H, which is a private joke, what did you rate second season of Ted Lasso?
So the first season, I would give like an A+++++. It was so good. Like the second season, I liked it, not as much as the first season, but I give it like an A-.
Okay. Yeah, I'm probably with you, like an 8.5 or 9.
Wow.
Yeah, I really liked the first season. And then the second season is probably an 8.
Oh, okay.
Not a 7, because I give everything a 7.
You give everything a 7.
Yeah.
Although I did go back and listen to one episode a few days ago when you gave something like a 4 or 5, and I was like, whoa.
So you're the one who's been listening to our episodes. Right. So you, our listener.
Our download numbers have spiked because I've been going back and listening to our archives.
Because you've been driving in your car a lot and you need something to listen to.
That's true.
All right. Anything else to offer up on this spectacular Ted Lasso, which is found on Apple Plus? I'm not sure we mentioned that, but
I did mention that, yes.
Okay. I'm sure you did.
I'm sure that the second the credit, the outro fades out, I will think of 18 other things to say. But
do you want me to fake the outro? I can do it with the root and tootin' if you want me to.
No, that's okay. I'm good. What about you? Anything else to add?
No, nothing else to add. I think all I want to add is thank you very much for joining us, listener, for another episode of the podcast. I'm not Coco.
And I'm not Daltz.